So here we have Levels I Hate Part 2, Level 11, which is really what prompted me to sort of reevaluate how I was approaching this game and start doing, like, making the levels out of order and thinking about, you know, when I wanted to introduce certain ideas and, you know, the sort of concepts and of each map and working towards them instead of just trying to shove a bunch of kind of things that aren't related into one map. This one doesn't, it like, for the gray brick sort of setting, it's very mazy, which doesn't make that much sense to me, because this is one of the, like, you know, it's a sort of like nicer castle setting. Like, that's how it's used in Wolfenstein. I guess it can be, you know, used as something else, but there's just a lot of spaces that are very linear, like very not particularly interestingly used, and a lot of like obfuscation and stuff for moving forward in a way that like is kind of senseless and doesn't really contribute anything for me. There's a ton of, I think the worst thing is the amount of backtracking you have to do to go back to the areas with the key. Like, usually I let you sort of return, you know, to a previous area without having to go back through everything, just, you know, for the sake of not pulling your hair out. But this one really makes you do it, and I think that even drove me nuts. And instead of redoing it or whatever, I think I just let this one be as it is, which was probably a mistake. But since I was doing so many levels, I just was like, you know, I want to get this done. So I just kept going. And that's why there are levels that I'm not happy with in this one. But there are some that I did redo because I wasn't happy with, and ended up getting to a better place with them. I just felt like I wanted to leave this one alone for some reason. Not really sure why. But yeah, you know, I was talking in the previous video about like unfairness being okay, but and even, you know, having a level where it's difficult to move around and unnecessarily confusing. I mean, you could make something good in that way, but I don't think this level was anywhere near that degree of intentional. It was just kind of crapped out, you know. It was kind of done without much thought of connectivity, just kind of random spaces, random ideas. And I usually, once I went over a thing once or twice, I tried to go back over it, you know, or you know, think very much about, as much as I could about each area, even if I were just doing variety for variety's sake, like what the feel would be like or something, you know, just so the spaces were more connected. And here, I felt like this level really didn't do that. But definitely the worst culprit is the backtracking that you have to do. And this is I'd also tell everyone, you know, that Chemical Warfare gets better level 12 and onward. That's when I think that's when I started to feel more satisfied with what I was doing. On the other hand, like, when I go back, you know, I see some of the earlier levels as having things that, you know, some of the later ones maybe didn't, where I tried to imitate things that were in the original Wolfenstein or reference them to such a degree that just doesn't really, like, I didn't have the sort of faith in myself to think that an idea that I'd come up with would be more interesting than something that was directly referenced from the game, because, you know, I had this idea that the game was automatically sort of holy and perfect, and this thing that I made was imperfect because it was made by me and not somebody else, I guess. So the closer, you know, it was to sort of recapturing my memory playing the game, the better it must be. So, but you know, you look back and it all kind of blends together, and the divisions that I had between a lot of the levels seem to not be as nearly as clear as I thought or imagined, although I still think they're there. And you know, I certainly noticed them more because I played this game so much, and someone who has played this game a lot would, but I think the more that you play something like this, the more that you're able to distinguish, like, even if not consciously, like how something feels, and like if it feels like it was done with intent or purpose, even if you don't like it, or if it feels like it wasn't. And this is a level where I'd say, you know, it feels like it wasn't done with as much intent or purpose. There are areas, I mean, back there's that classic scenario of where you can see the key through the column, but you have to sort of go around in this maze to actually get there, which is, you know, a very simple scenario in Doom, Wolfenstein, those kind of games. Wolfenstein especially, kind of a baiting the player in that direction, giving you something to desire. You know, you could, just by changing what could be a wall right there to a column, you sort of open those spaces up and make it more apparent that they're connected, and therefore they feel more related to each other, even though they might not be, you know. You might have gone through, like episode 6, level 1 of the original Wolfenstein, you have to go through so much just to get on the other side of the columns at the beginning, but somehow, you know, it all brings it back together, like you feel like you've come full circle or something, even though the spaces aren't really related to each other in a meaningful way. The spaces that you end up entering, getting to the exit from. Of course, if it were real life, you could just sneak behind the columns, but that's what Wolfenstein does. It has those blocking objects that don't really make sense, but open up the spaces without you having to like go through there, so it makes it all feel connected, I guess. I don't know, I always like doing it. It's a pretty common thing in Wolfenstein, and I definitely exaggerated it as much as possible, because it's one of the things that I always found the most interesting and fascinating, is putting things behind objects that you could see but couldn't reach. I guess it's just a basic sort of psychological thing. So here I'm going back to the key area, which is, most of this map isn't particularly inspired by anything, but the key area is definitely inspired by episode, the final area in episode 6, level 5, which I probably referenced multiple times. It's just this huge room, where it like spans almost the whole left side of the level, and you just look down this hall, and there are guards behind these little alcoves, but you have to, move forward gradually, and that's that marble column. I don't know why I put it there. You have to move forward gradually, so the guards gradually come out, because they won't just come out if you shoot. So here's the other side of that. Yeah, so this goes there. I'm gonna go. I was actually pretty generous with health and ammo in this level. Maybe it's just because I know where I'm going, but I don't think this one is nearly as difficult as a lot of, like, the next level, for example. But yeah, I wasn't particularly excited about this one, and it's not one I'm particularly excited about presenting. Okay, here it is. The actual level it's referencing is that area is much bigger, but I was limited by space. You know, the more space you use, the less impressive, crazy things you can do. But I did my best, and the satisfaction of running forward and running back was very nice because I knew I had a nice safety net. This is one of those things that remind me, you know, I was definitely 14 when I did this, you know. In other places it doesn't seem to show that age to me at all, you know. I still feel like almost like the same person, even though I'm not really who did it, but this is a level where I just think, you know, what was I thinking? I'm not really sure. Because I don't know, I have a love for kind of stupidity and innocence in terms of design. And I think that's a very underrated thing. And you know, when people say they're like ashamed of their early games or early level sets and it has that kind of stuff in it, I usually think, well, you're really missing something there that's really cool. But I think for me it was when I tried to do like more serious and conventional levels and didn't get there. That's the thing that I always feel the worst about myself, is when I try to do something in a way that I think other people are gonna like, and then it fails, and then I feel bad because I didn't want to really do it in the first place. And I think it, you know, it always shows in the end, but you don't think about that at the time. You don't really consider that. So here's the exit. I was just gonna stop here, right here before the exit, because there's something awaiting you in the elevator. In the README, I tell people to save before this elevator, but I think I said the elevator at level 12 instead of level 11. So yeah, it'll be hell at the beginning of level 12, but you'll see. Anyway, talk to you later.